Welcome, everyone, to Labor Live at 12:05. My name is Alex Jorgensen, the Communications Director here at the Alaska AFL-CIO, and the legislative session has just kicked off down in Juneau, which is a large part of our work this year. So what do? We bring back Labor Live at 12:05 to keep all of you up to date on how the happenings in Juneau are impacting Alaska's working families. And today's special guest, you might know her, Kim Hayes, our lovely political director that makes basically everything happen here at the Alaska AFL-CIO. And if you did not know, Kim is a proud alum of UAA. Gotta rep it. Earning what? Go Seawolves.
Go Seawolves.
Go Seawolves. She earned her undergraduate in liberal studies and her master's degree in public administration at UAA. So Kim, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Alex. Happy to be here. Happy to kick off the legislative session and see what's happening down there in Juneau.
It's always an exciting week because we get to the end of session and we go, oh man, it's nice to have a break. But once it gets back started, I think we all realize how much we all love it. So I guess to kick off, Kim, could you kind of share what is the Alaska AFL-CIO going to be focusing on this year?
Oh, absolutely. I like to share this because a lot of people don't really understand what things the Alaska AFL-CIO and labor writ large care about in Juneau. And some things might surprise you, different issues that we do get involved in. So many years ago, we sat down with our affiliates and created 6 pillars that help shape our legislative priorities. It really helps us figure out what bills we should be paying attention to. So, and luckily, Alex Jorgensen, our communications director, has put together this slide deck that kind of explains what our priorities are. So let's start with the very first one. The first one that we're going to talk about in Juneau, and there's already a bill that we can talk about related to this, is retirement security. So obviously we care about working people, but there's a life after work. And we want to make sure that people, union members, non-union members, they're having retirement with dignity. So making sure that they have, 401ks, access to pensions, different types of programs so that when they're done working, they can have retirement with dignity. Really important to us this year for sure. Our next pillar is building Alaska's infrastructure. There are projects that are going to be coming up in our capital budget, other priorities. We want to make sure that those pieces of infrastructure are built by Alaskans, they're built by union members, they're built with good wages and good safety programs. We want to make sure we're getting our youth involved in apprenticeships so they can build the future of Alaska. So that's very important to us. Our third pillar is protecting public education. This is obviously something everybody's seeing in the news. We are not the only people who care about public education, of course, but it is a function of society to make sure that our kids are educated. We want to make sure that they're getting a good education, and then when they graduate, they either go to a university system or into an apprenticeship program so that they can continue learning and go on to have a strong career. And of course, we want to make sure our teachers and our paraprofessionals and staff are valued. Our fourth pillar, which is kind of what everybody thinks of as the bread and butter of labor, is protecting workers' rights, health, and safety. So making sure they're safe on the job. And there's some pretty detailed things in our statement about this, but there's things to do with nurses. We obviously oppose right to work for less legislation. We'll be fighting that. Anything where we're going to be trying to protect workers and not roll back those protections is what we're going to be focusing on. Our fifth pillar is defending democracy. So this is when people say, well, why does the labor movement care about democracy? The labor movement itself is based in democracy. We are democratic organizations and our members vote and our members are part of society. So we want to make sure that people are enfranchised to vote, not disenfranchised, and that we have access to the ballot box and that things that voters have voted in are protected. So that's kind of the basis of why we care about democracy. And our last pillar is a sustainable, comprehensive fiscal plan. We know that in order to have a strong public employee sector that then supports the private sector and that our communities can grow and thrive, we have to know how we're funding everything. And so we have always gone to Juneau and talked about broad-based revenues, fiscal stability, making sure there's a sustainable permanent fund dividend that also allows us to fund essential services. So those are how we think about what's happening in Juneau and what bills we're going to care about. So we have those 6 pillars to guide us.
Yeah, and I know it's only been, two days now. This is day 3. But there's already been kind of like a flurry of activity. People are introducing bills. People introduced bills even before it started. So could you kind of maybe give some examples of current bills that we might be watching that kind of fit into some of those pillars?
Absolutely. And one thing for the public to know is even though they just gavelled in this week, legislators were able to pre-file bills on January 10th and then again on January 17th. And then, of course, now that session starts, they can read across bills on the floor, House floor and Senate floor. So there were already quite a few bills before we even gavelled in. Things that we saw that we're going to be paying attention to for better or worse. Just yesterday, we were creating our list. Number one, we are really excited about Senator Giesel's Senate Bill 28, which she introduced last session. This is a reintroduction of a pensions for public service bill. This is one of our top priorities. We're excited about it. We know that our public employees need it. It's how we're going to retain and recruit public employees to make sure our state can keep working. That's one we're championing, going to be in Juneau, talking to legislators about, really excited.
And we got pretty close on that one last
year. The closest we've ever gotten it since it was reversed in 2005, 2006 was last year. And so we're just going to keep that momentum up. More people have their eyes on it. There's more stuff in the news about how hard it is to recruit and retain public employees in Alaska. And Alaska is the only state without a public pension option for public employees. Pretty bad. We don't want to be the only one. That's not a great only one situation. I also want to talk about the fact that Senator Keel is championing one of our affiliates' priorities, which is address confidentiality of those public employees so people can't send them unwanted solicitations, because that's been happening over the last few years. So that was a kind of a niche priority, but it's great to see Senator Keel taking that on. In the bucket of defending democracy, we're excited to see Rep. Schraggy's election reform bill. It's just allowing more people the opportunity to vote with same-day registration, allowing folks to cure their ballot. If there was an issue, they can come and cure it. These are important things that everybody wants. We are concerned about Governor Dunleavy's election reform bill. We're going to be watching that one closely. It reverses automatic voter registration, which is one of our top priorities when we helped pass it in 2016. So both sides of the aisle, election reform is going to be a big topic. Does it move? We'll see. There's so many other priorities that are, on people's minds in Alaska. A bill we haven't seen yet, but we know is coming, is related to permanent increase to the BSA. So that'll be coming up any minute now. And we're going to push really hard for a permanent increase to the base student allocation. That is the chunk of money that comes from the state of Alaska to fund our public education system. And it is lacking. We know it's a big dollar amount. It seems worth it. We're going to be pushing really hard with all of our affiliates on that. Those are just some of the bills that we're paying attention to. There are, I don't even know how many bills there are, but at least 30 to 40 on our list that we're at least going to have our eye on. That doesn't mean they're all going to move like lightning, right? There's going to be hundreds of bills. They don't all move. And that's something to know. If you see a bill introduced, it doesn't mean it's going to make it through both bodies. It's actually likely not to, right? As we get closer to the end. So we, at the staff at the AFL-CIO, our lobbyists, our affiliates, we're all eyes on Juneau, as you said at the beginning, watching these bills kick off.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we don't maybe run the place, but that's just how the process works. And I know we're going to do our best to make sure working families across the state are protected and defended. So we've talked about session. We've talked about bills introduced. We've talked about the different priorities at the Alaska AFL-CIO. But let's say someone in the audience today has a bill that they're just really interested in, but they don't know exactly like how to track that or like how to keep up to date on where that bill is at in the process. How might someone do that?
Sure. And I understand this. I mean, this is my job. I've been doing it for 13 years and there are still surprises, right? There's always procedures you don't know about, but we are lucky in Alaska to have a really good website that the public can access in order to track the bills they care about. I'm actually going to share my screen and kind of walk you through it as quickly as I can and give you some basis, but the website is called www.akleg.gov. Pretty simple name, and I'm going to share it right now. So this is it. This is the Alaska State Legislature's website. It has a lot of resources that I'm going to walk you through. The very first thing is the spotlight. This is kind of what's happening that day. You can get to contact lists. But if you want to know what's happening on the Senate or House floor, that's when they all get together in the room in the Senate gallery or the House gallery, and they're either reading across new bills or debating bills or voting on bills. This is where you're going to see if they're in session and if you can watch it. As you can see today, they're not in. They'll be in tomorrow, but this is helpful. You can see if the House floor or the Senate floor are in. If you just want to know what's happening in general that day, or as you can tell, any of the upcoming week, you can scroll through to see the different committee meetings that are happening, who's coming, and if it's already happened, there's a really nice way to go watch it after the fact at the meetings tab. You can actually see the video of what happened in those meetings. So it's really accessible if you want to watch it live or if you want to watch it after the fact. If you're just like, what's happening right now? Are there any meetings? You can hit the Live Now tab right there. And if there was one, you could click on it. It'll open a Vimeo browser or in your browser, and you can watch the meeting. So it's really, really accessible for the public. I really like that. If you're, not interested in watching what's happening live or watch what happened, but you want to do some research on either who's your senator, who's in the Senate, who's in the House, these tabs will show you the pictures, contact information, what bills they've sponsored. It's really helpful. The other great tab that I spend a lot of time in is bills and laws. You can click on bills. You can figure out what's been introduced this session, what actions have been taken, who's the sponsor. It's a lot of information. A lot of people just want to kind of understand things about Juneau. The publications tab is really helpful. It has a lot of stuff in it. You can read the Constitution. You can look at administrative code. But what we kind of use and we really like, that's being updated right now since they just gavelled in, is a list of the committees and their members, the email addresses of all the committees, the seating charts, who sits next to who, contact lists for all the legislators. Eventually we'll know the staff list. These are good PDFs that you can use if you're going to go to Juneau or you need to figure out how to contact your legislator. And the final thing I want to share back on the homepage is at the very bottom. Let me scroll all the way down. Say you just want to follow the pension bill, SB 28. Right here, it tells you if you want to do that, you're going to text a bill number. So the example they give is HB1. That's House Bill 1, for example. This would be SB 28 if you want to follow the pension bill. You would text that information to this phone number, 559-245-2529, and you will get text alerts. You're going to get information on it's got a hearing. It's up for testimony. You're going to get all that information. It's really helpful. And it makes it so you don't have to spend so much time going to search. It's going to tell you. And you can do this for multiple bills. We do this for multiple bills. So the akleg.gov website is a wealth of information. It's meant to be really helpful for the public as well. There are way more tools on this website that you can play around with if you want.
Wow. I mean, I know governments are not typically known for having the most high-functioning websites, but that just seems so accessible.
It really is.
So I know people don't like to do this. People don't like to make predictions because they don't want to be wrong. But if you broke out a crystal ball, what would you predict are some things that might happen this legislative session with what we've seen so far?
Sure. And I'm not telling any state secrets here. If you've read the news at all and read the Alaska Current, the Alaska Beacon, the ADN, the News Miner, education is at the front of everyone's minds. Our school districts are struggling. They have multi-million-dollar deficits. We can't keep teachers. We're closing schools. Everyone in the House majority, many members of the Senate majority, it came out in their priorities. They want to deal with the base student allocation or the funding that comes from the state to our school districts. They want to get that out of the way so that districts can plan. Districts are in budgeting season and they don't know what they're going to get. And so it would not surprise me if we go guns a-blazing towards education funding. Friday is the first meeting of the House Education Committee. I would expect something to come out of that committee, right? That's going to be their charge. That committee is made up of educators and school board members. It's amazing to know that all of these people, regardless of party, know something about their district or the education system. So I expect something to come out of there because we need to get going on this. So that's going to be top of mind. They want to get that passed because then, as we saw last time, we were able to pass a permanent increase to the BSA, ultimately vetoed by Governor Dunleavy. I might say deja vu all over again in the famous words of Yogi Berra. And every year we get closer and closer to getting enough members to override the veto. We haven't made that threshold yet, but we're going to try really hard. I predict that coming up quick. The pension bill is going to get, hearings pretty soon. It's already in the Senate. Maybe there'll be another one in the House, right? Because they can introduce the same types of bills. That's going to be, we can do two things at once, right? And so we know the BSA is important and pensions are important. So I think that's going to come up here pretty soon. The other looming thing that doesn't just matter to the labor movement, to all Alaskans, is the energy crisis. They're having presentations right now from different producers and then people part of the administration. What are we doing about energy? What are we building? How are we going to keep our heat going? There's been articles about rolling brownouts. It's scary. People want to heat their homes. We might be having record warm temperatures right now. That is not a guarantee for the future. We need to have energy. So energy is a big deal. I think those are kind of the three top of mind things that I heard from both the House majority and the Senate majority leadership. So I know that means they're signaling what they want to deal with.
Mhm.
I do predict that just like last session, there are going to be some really popular bills that pass both bodies with a lot of support that meet the veto pen of the governor. It's unfortunate. It's what we've been dealing with for years. The other thing I'll predict, and this is not a hot take at all, is that the budget gets done at the very last minute. And a lot of
Who would have thought?
craziness happens at the end, of course. And then we have to wait for the line item veto of the governor. He's signaled that he's feeling really bold this year. I didn't know that he wasn't feeling bold last year, honestly, with all his vetoes. But, we just got to watch out and see what he is doing. And I predict that we are going to have more people than ever calling in to testify in support of the pension and the education funding and a solution to our energy crisis. So I think more and more people are engaged. I'm excited to know that more pro-labor people are elected. So I know our issues are going to be at the front of everyone's minds as well. So, I predict hijinks and shenanigans like every session. But I predict our priorities are their priorities. And so we're going to have a lot of work to do.
That always seems a safe bet to predict some sort of hijinks, and I'm going to hold you to it. Maybe we'll come back at the end of session. We'll roll the tape and see exactly what happened. But I definitely wanted to end on this note, and you kind of mentioned it just now. It's going to take a lot of work from all of us. Obviously, all of us in this office are going to be tracking what's going on and making sure you, the audience, are informed and are given ways to get involved. But we need you to get involved. When we put out a request for public testimony, when we want you to write a letter to your lawmaker about the pension, about the BSA, we're going to need your help because that's the only way we're going to get this thing, all of these priorities across the finish line. So we can't do it without you.
Nope. That's right. And I would say follow, Alaska AFL-CIO. We have a Facebook page, right, Alex? And follow that because that way you will know what's coming up and what you need to testify on. It doesn't matter what the weather is. The labor movement loves to rally. We also love to attend different town halls. We will let you know that information because you don't have time to research all that. That's our job. And so make sure you get to know who your legislator is. As a constituent, they really care about what you have to say. So, start that relationship, send them a letter, say, I live in your district and this is what I care about. It matters. And then you'll be ready to go when it's time to rally, testify by email, testify over the phone, go in person. And I would also say that we are here to help you if you don't feel comfortable. Reach out to the Alaska AFL-CIO. We will tell you tips and tricks for testifying. And spoiler alert, they just want to hear your story. You don't have to be an expert on any of these bills. You just talk about your kids' education or how you need a pension. You don't need the stats. But we'll go over that. And your voice is more powerful than our voice because this is our job. And they hear from us all the time. They need to hear from you as a constituent. So
we're just a special interest group. You are the people.
Just working people. That's all.
Perfect. Well, Kim, thank you so much for joining us on this 34th legislative session, inaugural Labor Live at 12:05. We're going to be bringing this program back, maybe not every week, but regularly to keep you guys involved. We're going to bring lawmakers on the show. We're going to bring policy experts on the show. So again, stay tuned. And again, thanks everyone for watching. This has been the first installment of Labor Live, and we'll catch you later.